were in fact Israelis, Jewish Israelis, who were caught filming the event, and it was a suspicious behavior that caused one of the people in the area to call the police and say, I've got these people that are sitting here filming the event, 9/11 as it's happening, and they're high-fiving each other and dancing around and celebrating.
You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells.
The FBI wasn't satisfied. Channel 4 has learned from intelligence sources that some of the men's names were already known to American counterintelligence. Paul Kurtzberg admitted serving in an Israeli army anti-terrorist unit. He refused to take a lie detector test for 10 weeks.
I was serving in a special unit in the army, and it's not a big secret or something like that. But there are things that I have to keep to myself as loyal to my country.
The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advanced knowledge of what was going to happen that day?
This has been acknowledged on Israeli television that these Israeli agents had foreknowledge. They admitted on Israeli television that they were forewarned and were told to go and film the event.
We were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
Investigators suspect that the Israelis may have gathered intelligence about the attacks in advance and not shared it. A highly placed investigator said there are, quote, tie-ins. But when asked for details, he flatly refused to describe them, saying, quote, evidence linking these Israelis to 911 is classified. I cannot tell you about evidence that has been gathered. It's classified information. Asked this week about another sprawling investigation and the detention of 60 Israelis since September 11th, the Bush administration treated the questions like hot potatoes.
I would just refer you to the Department of Justice with it. I'm not familiar with the report.
I'm aware that some Israeli citizens have been detained. With respect to why they are being detained and the other aspects of your question, whether it's because they are in intelligence services or what they were doing, I will defer to the Department of Justice and the FBI to answer that.
Beyond the 60 apprehended or detained and many deported since September 11th, another group of 140 Israeli individuals have been arrested and detained in this year in what government documents describe as, quote, an organized intelligence gathering operation designed to, quote, penetrate government facilities. Most of those individuals said they had served in the Israeli military, which is compulsory there, but they also had, most of them, intelligence expertise and either worked for Amdocs or other companies in Israel that specialize in wiretapping. Earlier this week, the Israeli embassy here in Washington denied any spying against or in the United States.
Carl, what about this question of advanced knowledge of what was going to happen on 9/11? How clear are investigators that some Israeli agents may have known something?
Well, it's very explosive information, obviously, and there's a great deal of evidence that they say they have collected, none of it necessarily conclusive. It's more when they put it all together. A bigger question, they say, is how could they not have known? Almost a direct quote, Brett.
So this is not disputable. They were amongst the other Israelis who were arrested on 9/11, some of whom were caught in vans with explosives in the vans.
George Washington Bridge.
Indeed, George Washington Bridge. And there were more than one set of Israelis that were actually caught with explosives in their vehicles.
And nationally, they're looking for a white Chevy van with New Jersey plates, and on the back bumper, it says something to the effect of urban moving system.
We had received an all-points bulletin, and I just happened to see the van and, hollered over to my lieutenant, that I think that could be the van. We checked it out, and it was. We were all on edge, obviously, so I really wasn't looking to make friends with these people, and neither were the officers that I were with. Once we started talking to them, they were pretty much like, hey, we're not against you, we're with you.
They were indeed from the Middle East, but more precisely from Israel. 2 of them were formerly identified as Mossad agents. The 5 officially worked for a moving company called Urban Moving Systems, whose owner, a certain Dominique Otto Suter, fled to Tel Aviv on September 14th and was never investigated.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind.
Tuval Aviv is a counterterrorism advisor to the U.S. Congress, but was once a spy for Israel's secret service Mossad. He says Urban Moving was a front company for Israeli intelligence, and that some of its workers were spying illegally in the U.S.
Israel has engaged in intelligence gathering in friendly countries. Some of it is done with permission, and some of it probably has been done without permission in areas that is vital to Israeli interest.
There was a bolo, which is be on the lookout for a particular van with, there's supposed to be a few occupants in there. And the bolo basically stated that this van may be on its way to destroy the George Washington Bridge or something like that, if I remember correctly, and blow up the bridge.
The FBI has now put out a nationwide APB all points bulletin for a white Chevy van with New Jersey registration. Written on the back is Urban Moving Systems.
2 or 3 men arrested on the New Jersey Parkway. Deborah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. That is the information that I'm getting from 2 sources, that there was a van either on the New Jersey Turnpike or the Garden State Parkway, and that it was near the George Washington Bridge. There were 2 or 3 men who were in the van. The van was pulled over. It is not clear why the van was pulled over, but when it was, law enforcers found tons of explosives inside of the van.
But some very intelligent and aggressive cops also stopped another terrorist attack from happening on the George Washington Bridge. CBS 2 has learned exclusively that 2 men are in custody tonight after being arrested at the George Washington Bridge with an entire truckload of explosives. Now I'm told that those explosives could have been enough to blow up the entire span and all the cars and the people that were on it.
And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives has anything to do with other events today is unclear, but the FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge.
I was watching the towers, and though I wasn't the closest, I saw them crumble to the earth like they were full of explosives. And they thought nobody noticed the news report that they did about the bombs planted on the George Washington Bridge. 4 non-Arabs arrested during the emergency, and then it disappeared from the news permanently.
So the only people arrested on the day were actually Israelis. And funny enough, when they were arrested by the police, there was anonymous calls on the day where very suspiciously reports were being made of people who looked suspicious around the George Washington Tunnel who looked like, and this is a quote, Palestinians.
City Place 385. We have a white van. 3 guys in there. They look like Palestinians. They're going around the building. There's a minivan heading towards the Howard Tunnel. I see the guy by Newark Airport mixing some drugs, and he has no street uniform on. He has what? He's dressed like an Arab.
So what does a Palestinian look like? And now, if you're an Israeli Mossad agent and you're using the motto of "Thou shalt," by way of deception, "Thou shalt do war," this makes sense that you would be blaming somebody who's not guilty, Palestinians, for a crime that you yourself are committing. Israeli Mossad are known for false flags, and it's clear they had foreknowledge. They had explosives in their vehicles. They were arrested on the day. Many of them failed lie detector tests, and they were quietly deported by Michael Chertoff, who was in charge of their release.
Since September 11th, more than 60 Israelis have been arrested or detained, either under the new Patriot anti-terrorism law or for immigration violations. A handful of active Israeli military were among those detained, according to investigators, who say some of the detainees also failed polygraph questions when asked about alleged surveillance activities against and in the United States.
Quietly deported back to Israel, and yet the whole time we've been told that Muslims are responsible for this. And then let's look at the Muslims and how ridiculous this story is. First off, you've got a guy in a cave in Afghanistan, Osama bin Laden, who, according to French intelligence, was seen in an American hospital in Dubai in July of 2001. So this CIA asset who's been working for Al-Qaeda, what is Al-Qaeda? It's nothing but a creation of the CIA functioning for the CIA.
Al-Qaeda, to the best of my recollection,
has up to now not attacked Israel.
But it's attacked your number one ally and protector and sponsor, the United States of America. There is a quote-unquote war on terror being going on for 15 years.
But so we've never made the case or argued the case that somehow Osama bin Laden was directly involved in 9/11. That evidence has never been forthcoming.
If you visit the FBI.gov website, you'll find the 10 most wanted list. And on that list, of course, is Osama bin Laden. You can pull up his wanted poster, and on that poster is a list of charges that he's wanted for. The curious thing is that nowhere in the list of charges is any mention of September 11th. The Muckraker report contacted Rex Toom, a spokesperson for the FBI, and asked why was there no mention of the attacks on September 11th on Osama's wanted poster. Mr. Toom's response was, "We have no hard evidence linking Osama bin Laden with the attacks on September 11th.
Now we have some breaking news coming into the MSNBC newsroom. A federal judge has approved a request by prosecutors to officially dismiss all criminal charges against Osama bin Laden. To officially dismiss all criminal charges against Osama bin Laden.
So Osama bin Laden, a guy who is apparently living in a cave in Afghanistan where you don't even have mobile coverage, is apparently masterminding some sort of operation with 19 hijackers, which includes a hijacker like Mohammed Atta, who was boozing it up in strip joints in Florida, snorting cocaine and going out with a stripper, which doesn't sound to me like a guy who's actually going to go out on a jihad and kill himself for the cause.
These guys had money flowing out their ass. I mean, excuse my language, but they never seemed to run out of money. I mean, they was just tossing money left and right. I mean, it was just like, oh my God. And they had mass supplies of cocaine.
The entire video is silent, and yet the images unnerving. The 9/11 mastermind and his accomplice laughing it up, and then going through their lines for a performance of martyrdom wills.
Jarrah frequently stumbles through his own martyrdom tape. Can't maintain a serious tone. His Al-Qaeda handlers coach him to be more dramatic. Start again. One of them scolds him off camera. This speech requires passion. Why don't you try a different approach? A second man chimes in.
This is not reality jihadism. This is more, in fact, scripted, edited, stylized.
Not only that, but none of these guys could fly these planes. It's been well accepted and acknowledged at this point. They were flying little one-engine Cessnas and Pipers. They're not qualified to fly these planes, especially with those types of maneuvers. And we can go on and on and on and on about this, but the bottom line is we see Israeli fingerprints all over this event, along with traitors in the U.S. government, and this is where the trail leads, very obviously, and that's in the public record. Never mind the destruction of evidence that occurred, there is no legitimate investigation. The 9/11 Commission report is a complete whitewash, it's a joke and an insult, and it doesn't even go into many of the issues that I'm mentioning here. So the real trail leads to Israel and traitors in the United States government, not to Arabs, not to Muslims. Those guys who were blamed for it, these 19 hijackers, are nothing more than patsies, and it's beyond obvious.
It is known that $100,000 passed through the account of Hanan Serfati, one of the arrested Israeli spies, who rented 2 Hollywood apartments on the same street as Mohammed Atta, one of the alleged hijackers of American Airlines Flight 11. It was also reported in the New York Times on February 19, 2009, that Ali al-Jarrah, a cousin of one of the alleged hijackers of United Airlines Flight 93, had been spying for Mossad on the Palestinian resistance and Hezbollah for 25 years. But of course, none of these leads were thoroughly investigated. The reason is that in 2001, the head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division was Michael Chertoff, the son of a rabbi and a Mossad agent. All Israeli spies arrested by the FBI, including the dancing Israelis, owe him their impunity and repatriation to Israel. Chertoff is a key man in the 9/11 operation. In 2005, he was appointed Secretary of Homeland Security in charge of the fight against terrorism on American soil, which allowed him to control dissident citizens and restrict access to evidence under the pretext of national security.
What's your general viewpoint about people who think the federal government was involved in 9/11?
I think that that's in the same category as Holocaust denial and those people who still aren't convinced that President Obama was born in Hawaii. It's kind of a out there conspiracy theory which does not warrant a lot of attention.
So this is where the trail really needs to go. And let us not forget, destruction of evidence in a crime scene is in itself a major crime. And for that, we can start arresting people right now. Critical evidence. In any crime scene, the first thing you do is seal off the crime scene. You start to investigate forensically. None of that was done. Those who were in charge of that crime scene need to be arrested right now for destruction of evidence. That's not disputable. Now, we can get into exactly who did it and how it was done and whatnot, which is a little bit more difficult. But if we had a legitimate investigation from the get-go, we would have had the evidence by now to be able to not only indict but prosecute and convict these bastards who are responsible for this.
Okay, Ken, I want to ask you this question. So why did they do 9/11?
Well, it's very well laid out. In the Project for a New American Century, we find that these so-called neocons, which I find is really synonymous with Jewish Americans, Israeli Americans.
We went to war against a guy who had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. It was a total pretext. It's inexplicable. And there you go to Cheney, there you go to Bush, there you go to the Jewish neocons who wanted to remake the world. Maybe I can say that because I'm Jewish, and to bring about a certain result in the Middle East.
I'm not really sure that you can.
Okay.
I'm not really sure that you can.
Go ahead.
The agenda of Israel is laid out very clearly in the Project for a New American Century, Rebuilding America's Defenses, Clean Break. You read these documents, and it laid out very clearly an agenda for the United States to achieve this goal of full spectrum dominance. And the full spectrum dominance agenda simply means that America found itself in a position where it should take advantage, according to these nutcases, that America should take advantage of the fall of the Soviet Union, should establish itself as the preeminent power on the planet, and have absolute control over air, land, sea, and space, and cyberspace. And the way to achieve this goal was to be able to secure some of the major energy reserves in key strategic areas around the world, including Afghanistan, the Caspian Basin, and whatnot. So these so-called neocons identified the former Soviet republics in the Caspian region with the stupendous amount of gas and oil reserves as key to controlling the world. So in order to secure that, a pipeline would need to be secured through Afghanistan to get all this stuff to market. And also it was identified that there must be permanent military bases in the Middle East. Of course, strategically, the oil there and other important aspects of keeping control of the world were identified. So we did have a base in Saudi Arabia at that time, which was a leftover of the first Gulf War, but that was becoming increasingly problematic. So Iraq was identified as a place not only to break up, but also to have permanent military bases. Now, the thing is that in this document, they said the American people, effectively what they said was the American people are too stupid to realize what an opportunity we have. And the only way that they would support these effectively wars of aggression, which are war crimes, quite frankly, the only way they would support such a thing is if there was a catalyst, some sort of, quote, new Pearl Harbor type event.
I think that today was another expression of the strength of this country and the strength of democracy. Nations, democracies don't go to war easily, and they usually debate and argue before they do. Sometimes they have to be bombed into going to war. In fact, that's what happened in World War II. All of Europe had been conquered. America was actually bombed in Pearl Harbor, and that was a pivotal event that opened the eyes of Americans. And once their eyes were opened, they gathered the power that is available in this great free nation, and the result was preordained. I think in a similar way, the bombing of September 11th opened the eyes of Americans to see the great conflict and the great danger that faces us. And once opened, then the overpowering will of the majority of the people of the United States, of the steamroller, is inexorably moving to decide this battle.
Lo and behold, only just a few years after these documents were written, 9/11 comes. It was the biggest gift to the Jewish supremacist Zionists who wanted to break up Iraq. That was always identified, breaking up Iraq into several pieces, and also surrounding areas.
The Israeli newspaper Ma'ariv has reported Israel's former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel. Netanyahu said, quote, "We're benefiting from one thing, and that is the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and the American struggle in Iraq."
The real reason for all of these policies we see is for something called the Greater Israel Project. And every policy we see playing out in the Middle East right now is all about basically getting the Arabs and Muslims to bleed each other, to